Hi guys, Sliders here, bringing you another episode of Gaming Rewind. This time taking a look at the Prince of Persia series. Arabian adventures, time travel, the prince has pretty much done it all, from his 2D humble beginnings to his current incarnation, all without having an actual name. Well, I hope you enjoy this retrospective on the Prince of Persia franchise. Prince of Persia is an action-adventure game franchise created by Jordan Mechner, with the games produced and developed by several different companies over the years, including Borderbund, Red Orb Entertainment and Ubisoft. The franchise has undergone several different incarnations and reboots, however they all feature a prince who is very acrobatic and must use his parkour skills in order to navigate the perilous traps he encounters in the land of Persia, and also a princess whose role has changed over time. The first game in the series, Prince of Persia, was released in 1989 for the Apple II computer. While the Sultan of Persia is fighting a war in another country, the Vizier Jafar, no not that Jafar, takes control and kidnaps the princess. The prince is thrown into the dungeon and must work his way through the palace in order to rescue her in under 60 minutes, played out in real time. As was the style in many games in that period, Prince of Persia did not use guns, but instead the characters fought with swords, with Raiders of the Lost Ark providing Mechner with the inspiration for the setting and the numerous traps throughout the game. Mechner also used the technique rotoscoping, using his brother David as a frame of reference for the animation, recording him running and jumping into what would eventually become the prince's trademark moves. The sequel, Prince of Persia 2: The Shadow and the Flame, was released in 1993, originally for MS-DOS. The prince must fight to regain his identity after Jafar casts a spell causing everyone to forget who he is. Gameplay is very similar to the first game, with the prince exploring Persia while avoiding deadly traps and solving puzzles. The Shadow and the Flame is more action-orientated than its predecessor, with multiple enemies appearing on screen, aided by reinforcements. As before, the aim of the game is to complete it under a strict time limit which passes in real time. The game features enhanced graphics as well as larger areas to explore. The series made the transition to 3D in Prince of Persia 3D for Microsoft Windows, released in 1999, and a Dreamcast version titled Prince of Persia Arabian Nights in 2000. While the game's visual direction was praised, Prince of Persia 3D, particularly the PC version, suffered from many bugs such as unresponsive controls and difficult camera angles. This was mainly due to the developer, Red Orb Entertainment, being forced to release the game early as a result of financial difficulties before the game had entered bug detection and correction stages. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time was released in 2003 for the PC, PlayStation 2, Nintendo GameCube and Xbox. The game was a reboot of the original series started in 1989. The Sands of Time was the first in a new trilogy that became the most notable games in the franchise. The game revolves around the core mechanic of being able to rewind time to correct mistakes for a limited period using the Dagger of Time, which the prince acquires at the start of the game. The dagger can be upgraded to carry extra sand tanks as well as gain different abilities for the prince to use. Along the way, the prince teams up with Farah, an exotic princess whose kingdom he had invaded to stop the vizier. Prince of Persia: Warrior Within was released in 2004 for the Xbox, PlayStation 2, GameCube and PC. Set 7 years after The Sands of Time, Warrior Within sees the prince travel to the Island of Time in order to stop the Sands of Time from being created. The prince is chased by a creature known as the Dakara, who tries to kill the prince for his interference in the timeline. The prince now uses a medallion to access his time powers. The game is much darker in tone than The Sands of Time, with increased violence and gore that polarised many fans as it was an extreme departure for the series and the prince himself. The game features a free-flow combat system that allowed for many moves to be chained together. The game also has 2 possible endings depending on whether the prince can acquire the Water Sword, the most powerful weapon in the game. Warrior Within was also released for the PSP under the title Prince of Persia Revelations in 2005. Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones was also released in 2005 for the Xbox, PC, GameCube and later ported to the PSP and Wii, entitled Prince of Persia: Rival Swords. The game is the final part of the Sands of Time trilogy and takes place directly after Warrior Within. The prince returns home to Babylon, where the vizier, still alive due to the prince's manipulations in the timeline, has once again seized control, so the prince must do battle with him one last time. The prince is once again reunited with both the Dagger of Time and Farah, but does not remember him. Throughout the game, the prince becomes infected by the sands, and begins to develop an evil split personality that tries to take over. The Dark Prince is much stronger and has access to a different moveset, but consistently loses health, with the prince being able to transform back into his normal self when the Dark Prince comes into contact with water. The franchise was once again rebooted in 2008 with the release of The Prince of Persia for the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 and PC. After a sandstorm diverts him off course, the prince finds himself in a mysterious land where he encounters a woman named Elika. The two of them set out to heal the world from the corruption of the god Ahriman. Instead of the linear-style level design of previous games, Prince of Persia adopts open-world exploration, which allows the player to go anywhere they wish. The game retains the core mechanics of the series, with a mixture of acrobatics, combat and puzzle solving, with Elika aiding the prince in battle and assisting him in performing additional acrobatic maneuvers. An interesting feature of the game is that the prince cannot die in a conventional sense, as Elika saves him when enemies are about to finish him off. The game's plot is heavily based on the religion Zoroastrianism. A spin-off titled Prince of Persia: The Fallen King was also released in 2008 for the Nintendo DS. The prince teams with his companion Zal to stop Ahriman's forces. The game is controlled using the DS stylus and by using the touchscreen. The game received modest reviews from critics. Prince of Persia: The Forgotten Sands was released in 2010 for the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, Microsoft Windows, and free exclusive versions of the game for the PSP, Nintendo DS, and Wii. The game is set in the Sands of Time continuity and is an integral set between the Sands of Time and Warrior Within. The prince journeys through his brother's kingdom, fighting King Solomon's army of sand creatures. Time manipulation is once again an important feature, as well as the use of elemental powers, with combat similar to the Sands of Time. In 2007, a Prince of Persia graphic novel was released, as well as a film adaptation based on the Sands of Time, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, released in 2010. The Prince of Persia series has had a long and fruitful history, and one that in later years has brought 3D platforming to prominence. Well, that was my look back at the Prince of Persia series. If you liked what you saw, let me know by leaving a comment, rate this video and subscribe because it helps me out a lot. Check me out on Facebook, and thanks so much for watching. Until next time, peace out guys.